Master's Orders, a BDSM romance story, written by Denisse Rose, narrated by Michelle Jones. Chapter 1. George was the type who still thought he had the looks and charm in his 50s as he did in his 20s. He was the type to chat to all of his friends about how he could still get any girl that he wanted, even if they were half his age. It was with good reason that he thought that too, as he often had beautiful women in his bed, but it was more on account of his money and his power and a lot less about those looks and charm. One of those types of girls was Annie, but it wasn't the first time she'd been in his bed. She was enjoying her hot little fling and had been falling deeper into his world of kink and domination. It was all fun and games to her, barely past 20 years old, and still wanted to have as much fun in her life as possible, and that included fucking one of the directors of the company she worked for. He was handsome enough, but it was something about the money that he had and the position that he held at the company which attracted her to him. Now she was in deep. It was the sexual exploration that was keeping her intrigued. George, of course, thought it was that wit and charm which had this girl in his bed. He always had a very high opinion of himself, and this was no exception. He didn't really care what anyone else thought, as long as he got what he wanted. He'd got an early finish off work, which was prearranged with Annie so that they could meet up. She had long, straight brown hair and a pretty face that held a little too much makeup. She wanted all the finest things in life, even on her modest salary, but a little money every now and again from George helped with that. She met him at his grand home as she gave him that sexy look that she had with her deep mascara and hot red lipstick. She was currently dressed in hot black heels and a long coat, but George knew what was going to be underneath it and happily accepted her into his home. As soon as she got into the home, there was no greetings or pleasantries. She dropped her coat straight to the ground and walked straight up to the bedroom. George looked from behind at her sumptuous young body, which he absolutely craved. The hot black heels were at the bottom of her slender feet, which were covered in sexy stockings and clipped up to a garter belt as she was pantyless as usual. Up from her body was a sexy lace bra, as George happily followed her up to his room. When they were there, they played by his rules, as he would begin to dominate the naive beauty. "Lay on the bed," he said to her, as she did what she was told. George grabbed her by the waist and directed her to the edge of the bed, as her head was now perched over the end of it, as she was looking upside down at him. George threw his work clothes to the side as quickly as he could, as he soon stood naked in front of her, Annie looking up at him with that innocent smile that she usually played so well. He directed his cock into her mouth as she pursed her lips in order to give him the feeling of tightness around his cock. He started thrusting his hips back and forth, fucking her mouth as she started to make a slurping sound, as George loved the sight before him. He had one hand on the bed and another around her throat as he kept going as far as he could until Annie gagged as her eyes started to water at the mouth fucking, loving the domination that she usually received from the wealthy man. He took his hand off her throat as he leaned over the bed. Their bodies were not almost parallel as Annie continued to work his cock with her mouth as George started playing with her pussy. He placed his hand on her clit as he massaged it, before drawing his hand down and slipping his fingers into her pussy. He slid them in and out a few times before lowering his fingers down and playing with her asshole, pushing in his index finger as she continued to massage the tip of his cock with her tongue. George pushed himself up off the bed into a more upright position before withdrawing his cock from her waiting mouth. "Get in the doggy position," he said, as Annie got up from her position and turned around on his orders. This was a usual routine, and not much changed from time to time. She liked to be spanked and was waiting for the first strike on her ass. It could have been a flogger, a whip, or a crop, though, as he always mixed between the three, and this time it was a whip that he'd be choosing, as he whipped her bare ass with it. George loved to see the red marks build upon her until her whole behind was a bright red color. Annie let out large
Sample complete. Ready to continue?